NANI?!
Hey, what is up everyone? Welcome back to another review, and today I'm taking a look at something brand new by Bandai, and this is pretty cool. This is the next stage of the 30-minute missions line of model kits. This is 30-minute fantasy, and this is the Liber Knight. Now straight away I'm just going to point to that Bandai Namco logo up there in the top right hand corner. This is on every kit they make. Gunpla, 30-minute missions, everything. But there's something else that logo tends to be at the beginning of. And that of course is the Souls games by From Software. Now we've already seen that the 30-minute missions line has evolved to Armored Core. So is there a chance that these can eventually evolve to Souls kits? If so, that would be awesome. Anyway, let's check it out. So anyway, this right here is the box. It's pretty much the same as what we would see from a 30-minute missions box, but this time it's got more of a fantasy kind of feel with the font. There is what is inside of the box, so the core unit as well as the armor for on it. You can job change, of course. There is sold separately armors as well, which I have right here. So these can change it to Paladin and Holy Knight, and that's definitely a bit of a Souls looking pose right there. I expect to see that beside a campfire. Anyway, let's check out what we've got inside. Alright, just pop in, open the box. This is your usual kind of high grade size box. 30-minute missions don't really 30-minute anymore. They're a lot more involved of a kit than what we would have seen originally with the original Alto. So taking a look at what we've got in here, we've got 1, 2, 3, and 4 bags of plastic. There is the instruction manual. So with the manual right here, we do have a little bit of a blurb about what's going on. First off, around on the back, there's the world that this is set in called DL-O. And the TLDR about this is basically Earth hit by meteorites. No longer can you live on the Earth, so they made these robots. This is a robot. This particular knight is a robot in order to make the Earth habitable again. And these have elemental cores. This one's elemental core is water, and I think that's a reason just to make it blue. They've got job changes to class them up. This is a class 1 armor, and the add-on things are class 3 apparently. From what I'm seeing right here, the build is pretty much identical to what we would have seen with the 30-minute sisters, even down to the kind of little ring sections in the arms and legs. So essentially it's just another add-on to that, and I'm sure it'll be completely compatible. When it comes to the build of the 30-minute fantasy kits, so far looking at this one right here, they're quite involved, like a 30-minute missions kit, but a little bit different. There are 11 runners in total here, some of which are quite small, and you do break them down into smaller elements like we would have seen before with some kits like the 30-minute sisters. Basically, each number represents a body part, 1 being the main body, 2 is the arms, 3 is the legs, and 4 seems to be a lot of the equipment. As for the build, at first I thought this is exactly the same as the third wave of 30-minute missions robot kits, which were the Maxion Forces. It looks very, very similar. It builds very, very similarly, but there's a little bit of a difference to it, and the thing that got me in the end more than anything else is this is quite the sizable kit. It's bigger than your average 30-minute missions. Now this did seem at first like a Maxion Forces kit, but it is not. It's very, very detailed, and there's a little bit more to it. The joints here I will mention are not C-clips like you'd see on 30-minute missions kits. These are more standard 3mm hole sort of joints in the knees. Same in the shoulders and the arms as well. The elbow joint is a nice little joint that just has one 3mm kind of peg section, but overall this links together very well. I expect you to be posing this up a lot, and you can feel that. The waist has some dropping mechanisms inside of the unit itself, so you do have dropping hips. And we do have multiple points of articulation inside the chest with some very impressively designed joints at the neck and the shoulders too. Next up then is the head. This is just a few elements, I think 4, but it does have color separated eyes, which is very, very interesting. This is neither human nor mecha looking, it's a combination of both. And overall, when you do put it together, what you get is kind of like, well, an android sort of human, and it has a lot more human-like movement compared to what we would have seen with the Maxion Forces 30-minute missions, and there's a lot more articulation to it too, even compared to a 30-minute sisters. So once the Liber Knight is snapped together and put together, this is what you get. Now this is the interior section. The armor has not yet been done, so it does look a little bit on the unfinished side. Definitely not very knight-like just yet. So this is more the, I guess, robot that is inside of the actual armor. So these aren't armored humans, they are armored robots. So this right here is just over 15 centimeters or just over 6 inches, so larger than your typical 30-minute missions or a 30-minute sisters. It is a big model, it's going to get bigger once the armor goes on, so I can't wait to see that. And we do have a lot of nice panel detailing all over it, clear parts in the eyes and the chest. The anatomy on this is great, and so far the posability on this is quite fluid, it feels nice, and getting it into poses does feel very, very good. It's nice to pose, the joints are strong, it's very unique, and it's not like anything I've ever built before. Honestly, I'm really excited to get the armor on, so that's what I'm about to do now. But so far, impressive, but looks-wise, it's a little bit on the basic side so far. So when it comes to adding on the included armor, it's super simple, and what you get in the end is ridiculously effective. When it comes to the head, you've got a piece to attach onto the back. You do have to remove the mouth muzzle segment to attach on the kind of eared aspect, and then the face guard goes on. Once again, down at the body, it's the same sort of thing. You do have to remove one section from the chest to add on the new armor. We've got a part for around the neck, and the shoulder pauldron aspects actually attach into a whole apparatus that attaches onto the back, giving it more bulk. Pretty much the same thing down at the waist. Those waist guard armors do attach on from the sides, and we do have an additional bit of armor for on the front as well. When it comes to the arms, we have these lavender colored rings on them. These we have to replace with other lavender colored rings which have a peg on them. That is for the upper arm armor and the wrist armor. We have a rear guard for on the arms, and then down at the legs it's the exact same thing. You need to remove a ring to attach on another ring, just like we would have seen in the past with 30-minute sisters kits. All the armor just layers on then, and it is super simple, but the payoff in the end is ridiculous. This is big, this is massive, and it looks great. Now at this point, this kit was so awesome, I felt it was lacking a little bit. The armor did look a little bit on the plain side, and when I took a look at the art on the box, you could really see that they had panel lined the kit, so that's exactly what I did. I did disassemble this and use the flow type panel liners to just fill in all of those lines. These are very quick, you just let them run through the recesses in the kit, wipe off the excess, and then you are done. Definitely a highly recommended step if you want this to stay in its original colors. And that brings us to right now in time. This is it finished, and this looks so good. Again, I have panel lined it, that is it. I didn't even really do much cleanup during the building process either. There are some nubs, and there are some mold lines here and there, but nothing too killer really. Overall though, this does look ridiculously impressive. Let's take a little bit of a deep dive. Now getting this thing into the full 360 spin, and first off I will mention, I was almost going to put this kit instantly onto the backlog. I thought it looked cool, but I thought it looked exactly like what we would have seen from the 30-minute missions line in the past. I thought this would have been based on the Spinatio 30-minute missions kit. It looked kind of the same, but it is nothing like it. It feels amazing. It looks amazing. The inner model itself does look a little bit on the plain side, like a bit of a cyborg or a Android kind of thing, but once you get that armor on, this looks incredible. Once again, I've only panel lined it. This is what it looks like out of box. The nice clear piece in the chest is its core. This is giving it its water power, and that does sparkle very nicely. It is in, I'm not sure how this will show up in the video, but it's in a multiple shade of almost a kind of cool white, if that's kind of a weird thing to say. Maybe the lavender is throwing me off a little bit, but it is extremely bright light gray and a light gray. So there is two tones in there. The armor is a little bit of a different color, and we do have some more armors to look at today, by the way, a little bit later on in the video. Again, I will mention the detail on this does not really pop if you do not panel line it, so panel lining definitely a recommendation at the very least. So when it does come to the colors on this kit, it is quite plain, which I think definitely works in its favor. It's mainly going for the light gray on lighter gray kind of look with a little bit of purple and blue on it. But I think, like I mentioned, that does work very well for a first release. It's a good base for painting. It just looks awesome, and sometimes metallic kind of colors, when done in plastic, don't look so great. I'd say there's probably going to be one in future which will be metallic. I know there is one coming out that's a little bit on the darker side. We have multiple versions coming out, fighters, archers, mages, and if it's anything like 30-minute missions, you will see tons of color variations too. Now, of course, if you do want to paint this, you're probably going to want to paint this metallic. Now, there is a one-stop way of doing this, and that is this Chrome Mecha pen by Bandai. I've used this before on some kits, well, on one kit in particular where I did the entire thing in it with some gold Gundam marker too. So this is a one-stop way of actually chroming this thing out. I would, however, recommend just priming it all black and painting it. Is probably the best way. Like if it was a Warhammer model or something like that. Dry brush it, paint in some detail, it will look incredible. But as it is out of box, beautiful. Like I mentioned already, this is a lot bigger than I actually expected it to be. It is just over 15 centimeters, just over 6 inches. There's the usual test of it between a high grade and a master grade Gundam. And if you're looking to pop this in with some action figures, there it is beside 2 Figmas, which I will mention are stand on their bases, so that makes them a little bit taller than usual. And just in case you've none of that around for reference, there it is beside a monster can, so it's just a little bit smaller, shorter than that. There it is beside 2 30-minute missions kits, so as you can see, it's a whole lot bigger. I thought it'd be exactly the same as the Spinatios right here, especially the Knight-style ones, but it is not. It's a lot more robust, it's a lot bigger, and all around just feels like a better kit. So now jumping into the articulation and the usual, comment on the build quality. This is very lightweight, which is actually shocking considering the price, so that does mean it kind of stands up fine. Nothing is weak so far, but that's not to say it won't get weaker in time, but the joint designs are actually quite nice compared to some of the C-clippy style things that we see in 30-minute missions. So that does mean a lot of it, besides the regular pegs at the shoulders and the hips, won't be really compatible with those kits per se. Of course, all of these 3mm holes, which are hidden quite well and aren't as obvious as your usual 30-minute missions kit, will be compatible. I'll also mention at this point, this is not the usual Gundam model kit pack. Attachment point, that's a little bit further apart, so sadly if you wanted to throw some Strike Freedom wings on it, you fucking can't. But anyway, into the usual pose. And there you go. As you can see, it is absolutely fantastic. It is flawless, and there's there's nothing awkward about it. Everything flows nicely. One of the greatest designs here is the fact that Bandai have made the side skirting armor as well as the shoulder pauldrons right here. They're actually on the backpack, so you can move them completely out of the way of the limbs while getting it posed and then popping them back in, so they do not get in the way. Every joint on this is phenomenal. I wish this could move up a little bit more, but the armor kind of conflicts with itself, but you know, you could modify that a little bit. We've got dropping hips in here. The ab crunch is phenomenal. It's some nice simple ball joint on ball joint action, but they've been just amalgamated into the design so perfectly. This is incredible. And finally, with the neck right here, this can actually look up in the nicest possible way when you don't actually pull it off, but that is what the neck joint is like right there. That is, it's impressive. And it means it can look up in nice, dramatic poses. This is a posing machine. Oh man, I think I feel the addiction happening right now. It's awesome. So jumping into the accessories, and here's everything that does come inside of the box with this kit right here. Now, you could choose to break this down a little bit differently. Now, if I reach on over here and grab this, these are the little bits that were taken off when the armor was put onto it. So these are some options. Actually, there's some hands in there. Hold on. These should also be displayed up on here too. But yeah, those are what we got. We've got alternate hands too, are already still attached onto the robot Knight itself. We've got some adapter pieces. We've got a simple sword, and we do have a big old shield. Now, I will mention, I will be taking a look at some of the armor packs that came out on the exact same day. 2 of those to be precise. So if you do want to expand upon this kit, that is what you'll be looking for as well. But we'll take a look at those in a little bit. Let's look at what's in this box first. So when it comes to the hands in here, these are the hands I've had attached on the whole time. These are some widespread hands. There is the front. That right there is the back. So again, they look armored on the front. They almost look like you could paint them a kind of leathery color on that side if you wanted to keep it a little bit more fantasy than robot. But overall, nicely detailed, and they look good. Swapping out the hands is super simple. You just pluck them off like so. Make sure to take the joint with them. As for that joint, it's one of those kind of split ball joints like so. So it does mean you've got a bit of flexion and extension as well as rotation in them. Attaching on the hands is just the reverse. And the other style of non-weapon holding hand we have in here is a pair of fists. Attach on the same way. That is what they look like, and they look good. I will mention though, I did not panline these guys. Most of the time I'll mention that balance is not an issue in here, but he does have some dainty little feet, so it does mean sometimes it might fall over all the time, but usually not really. If you just balance it fine, it is fine, but it's a bit of a pain in the arse in a review, so I'm just going to grab an action base. Any action base should do the job for you. I always recommend Good Smile Company's simple stands. It's 3 of these for around 11 or 12 euro or dollars. They're very robust. They're like big Figma stands, basically, and they do the job well, especially if you're constantly posing or you're trying to get the right position you want. However, if you want something that's both a storage solution as well as a stand, I recommend these display stands right here. They sent them on to me. They are very, very, very awesome. They do the exact same thing. You just pop it on in like so. I'd recommend actually just putting 2 of these together as opposed to the 3. unless you want them absolutely airborne, but they do wiggle a little bit. That's why I don't use them in reviews, because they're kind of soft plastic, but these will do the job perfectly as well. And the bottom of these opens up for storing the accessories you're not using, so these are handy. Also, you can get them in opaque as well, not see-through, in case you don't want to see what's in there. But if you're constantly posing or filming or taking photographs, I like this right here, because it just holds its position absolutely perfectly all of the time. It is rock solid. So when it comes to the weapons, the first thing we have in here is a sword. This is very, very simple. It's just two pieces that connect together just like so. This is a 3mm peg, so you can extend this or change it with some 30-minute missions or fantasy parts. Getting the sword attached into the hand, you use this specific hand right here, which is a holding hand. This has a simpler joint compared to the other one, so it's a little stronger. Getting this into a pose is super, super easy, and it does look great. But I will mention, that sword is a little bit on the small side, which will eventually bring us back to the actual expansions you can get for this. Everything expands onto the sword, so this is the sword in its smallest form. It is definitely small, maybe more realistic a size for a knight sword, and it is, you know, kind of the same color as the rest of the kit, which makes it look very, very similar, but again, we will be looking at the expansions. Next up in here is the shield. This is very nice. It's big and thick. We do have expansion points on the front. This is the back with more expansion points on it. This is nicely detailed. I didn't actually panel line the inside side of it. I did a little bit on the outside right here, and it is good and thick. The piece on the inside is separate to the outside, so if you did want to paint them different colors, you can separate them and just do them with a spray. And we do have this attachment point round here for attaching it into the arm, and this one if you do want to pop it into the hand. I'm just going to go with attaching it into the arm for simplicity. We do have a hole round back like so. You can choose whether this is on the side of the arm or the back of the arm, and basically how long up the arm you want it. And then it just plugs on in, as simple as that, and that is what it looks like. So this is what you get out of box with just the box itself. But let's check out the expansions for this kit. So next up, we're going to be taking a look at this. This is the 30-minute fantasy class-up armor, Libra Paladin. So we're going from the Liber Knight to the Libra Paladin. That's a class 1 armor to a class 3 armor, apparently. Now, when it comes to the build of this, it's pretty much exactly the same as the kit itself, or any of the 30-minute add-ons we've seen in the past. There's not much actual assembly to the individual parts inside of the box, just a couple of bits attached together like the shoulders, the gold parts onto the darker grey aspects, and honestly, I cannot wait to see what this looks like attached. This stuff is fun, was fun to put together yesterday, so I've been waiting till today to actually do it. Alright, so I have the Paladin armor stashed away right here. There's quite a few bits actually to this. Just tip them all out right there. I'm not actually going to line them up. But yeah, there's a lot of stuff. The thing I'm most excited about is this right here. This is an expansion. Or should I even say, this is a expansion enunciate for using with the sword. That is pretty cool. Besides that though, it's a lot of armor pieces, and I assume this armor is going to have to come off, but something deep down inside of me is telling me nothing's going to top this armor for me. But anyway, let's try. The instructions in here is just kind of the pamphlet part from the back of it, so everything is very, very simple. Can fit on this one here scroll. The instructions say to disassemble it, so who am I to argue with it? I'm going to disassemble it for the sake of ease. I do know some parts like the... Actually, I don't know if there's any parts that do actually require fully disassembling it, but hey, I'm just going to do it anyway. Legs off too, it seems. So off they pop. Alright, so which parts need to come off? Starting with the chest anyway. Oh, wait a minute. Nothing comes off. So the new chest section that would have been added onto this, well, the part inside the knight armor does not come off. You just attach this here bigger piece of armor over it, just like so. Okay, so you do maintain some of the knight armor. So the mask and the ear kind of sections come off, so we're down to this bit again. We've got a new mask and new armor face bin. I will mention all of this armor I did not actually get around to panel lining, so it is a little bit on the plain looking side, but there is a lot of nice lining on there. When it comes to the shoulders, you just remove this little upper section like so. I thought you'd be losing the entire shoulder, so that is quite... Get out of the way, you! Quite impressive. The new armor sections just attach on up here where we took off the other ones, just clip on like so. That is what they look like. And we've got a bit of armor right here for reinforcing its back. Next up then, when it comes to the arms, all you're changing is the wrist armor. So that is just that little section that was right there comes off. You pop on this brand new one just like so, and that just holds on with the hand just like that. At the waist, you just take off the old side skirting armors just like that. You steal these purple little bits off of it just like so. Replace it with one that looks just like it in grey. Pop these little attachment bits back on, and then on with the newer, bigger side skirts. Lastly then, the part that I've been looking forward to the most is the expansion to the sword. The sword itself is just so small and plain. It's going to be cool to kind of get it to a fancier, bigger level. So this just slots on inside of it like so. Has a nice cutout in the middle so you can still see into the original blade, and adds a nice third dimension. And there we go. Big old sword. Looking good. Well, it seems like there's a couple of parts I missed. We have a little extra crotch guard section which expands the crotch like that. And we're not actually removing any armor off the legs. We're just adding an extra little bit of grey down here to the shin. So pretty cool. Then it's just a case of getting it all put back together again. So on with the leg, torso, arm, and arm. Finally then the head attaches on up here, and then you just bring everything forward into position just like that. The last step then is this adapter which came with the original kit. Just pops into the shield, and the shield is now the new giant piece of butt armor. So there it is finally with the Libra Paladin armor attached, and it's definitely added another element to it. It's bigger, it's bulkier. I will mention once again, this is not panel lined, so all the details aren't popping as well as they were on the white, but get some dark grey or black panel lines on this and it will look incredible. Like I mentioned, it's bigger. We've got some nice metallic gold in here as well. I always recommend painting metallic gold sections because the actual plastic itself does look a little bit on the cheap side, but here they've picked a nice shade so it's not as bad as usual. Overall, this does look great. The bigger sword is cool, but I will mention one little bit of a downside to it, and that is it just does not feel as good as it did. Hold on, let me get the light up here. It doesn't feel as good as it did when it was just in the other kind of simpler armor. This has added a lot more bulk, which means when you're actually posing it around, it does feel a little bit more awkward. These things get in the way a lot. This is constantly trying to fall off, and it has no articulation, so it's always kind of cocking in underneath the legs a little bit. It's just not quite as nice as it was before. I guess it's the usual thing of when you do add on more, yeah, there's more kind of chances of general failure because good old law of the lever and whatnot means everything wants to fall off. So it's not as play-aroundable as it once was. Some of the articulation is lost, not a lot actually, because they decided to keep these shoulders and the waist armors out of the way. You still have great articulation besides the fact that it's got a shield for an arse now. But overall, it's still great, just not as much fun to play around with as it was in its standard 9 mode. Trying to get now into a little bit of a pose for the spin, and yeah, this definitely is more likely to fall apart now that there's more parts sticking out all over the place. The butt shield does get in the way, and overall the design has gotten a little bit messier, well, I guess subjectively, than it would have been before. Again, if this is all painted up in the same sort of color or a nice matching scheme, it will look great, but as it is, it does look a little bit not as cool, in my opinion, as it did look before the armor was popped on, and it sure is a lot more awkward to handle. But that is not the only armor we got. On the exact same day, we got this right here, which is the 30-minute fantasy class-up armor Liber Holy Knight. So this is in a white and gold kind of color scheme. It looks like it might match a little bit better with the base kit than what we would have seen in the last one, the Paladin one. Getting this built up is exactly the same. Some bits like the shoulders need a little bit of assembly, but the rest of it, not so much. The sword has some nice clear parts on it. The shield is really, really cool. It's giving me some Sinanju vibes a little bit. And overall, so far, looking pretty impressive. Let's get it attached. Once again, we're going to be breaking this down to all of its individual elements. Again, not as simple as it was before because it's a little bit more of a cluster fudge of a kit with all this stuff attached. Once again, all the armor attached onto it. It looks like this right here. This sword is similar to the way it was before, but we do have a 3mm peg down here which holds it in position. And we do have some nice blue clear sections as well laid into the gold right there. Also, we do have a little bit for enhancing the shield as well, which we did not have before. So that is what the shield looked like. And now we just pop this little section into it, just like so, for that little bit of a Holy Knight style flair, which is somehow different to a Paladin. Anyway, getting the weapons attached on, and you'll notice that a lot of the parts have been used from the original Knight, like the side skirts right there, the part of the face as well, that kind of has that little bit of an ear kind of effect up here, that is also used from the original kit too, so it has a different kind of setup to the one we would have seen with the Paladin, and overall this does feel a little bit more secure, and a little bit stronger than the way that particular build was. Anyway, just attaching everything on just like so. A lot easier to pose. It retains a lot of the original strength a lot better than what we would have seen before. But yeah, that looks pretty cool. A lot of nice detail on this, especially up on the shoulders here. Some pristine white on those brand new shoulder expansions. The head has an almost Gundam-esque feel with that big thing up there, but I can't help but feel that this feels a little bit Kamen Rider-y or maybe Super Sentai-y compared to a knight. Maybe it's the harsh silver on white. It might work better if it was all in a kind of knight metallic sort of look. Still, to me, I felt the best looking version is just the kit as it comes on its own, at least out of box without any paint. So anyway, that right there is it for the review, and this is an awesome kit, so much better than I thought it would be. It's a lot bigger, it's a lot heftier, and it's a lot more secure than previous 30-minute kits out there. They're definitely coming along well. This is more like a kind of figurize or something like that, but even better designed than those, I feel. The core kit is fantastic. The inside aspect does look a little bit robot-y, which of course this is. It's a android kind of knight sort of thing. But once you actually add on the expansions, these I think bring it down a little bit, both aesthetically, which of course is subjective, as well as just general strength of the kit alone. But yeah, that's what all three look like. This is the first release, it's pretty cool. And if you were going to go on a recommendation from me, I'd say get the core kit alone. The other kits are cool for the weapons that are in there, but there is some cool swords and big weapons available through the other 30-minute franchises. So there's a lot to do here. You can probably combine both of these add-on kits onto it in whatever way that you like. Anyway, if you do want one of your own, I got mine through those awesome people over at Hobby Link Japan. Link is down there in the description. As always, thank you so much for watching, and I will see you next time. As always, I can't finish this video without special thanks to those who support the channel on the memberships as well as over on Patreon, including Abraxas, Caleb Engelhart, Joe, Orgy59061, Shadow Wolf 179, 10 Soldier YT, and Van Fawn.